What's the earliest memory you have on the internet? For many of us, it's Nyan Cat and troll faces. But for some of the earlier users in the 90s, they were entering an unexplored new world, full of mystery and bizarre content. This is the 90s Internet Mysteries Iceberg, an absolutely massive chart covering the deepest internet oddities, ranging from some of the first ARGs and online anomalies to the darkest true crime involving the early internet. This is the first video in a new series where we'll be covering mysteries from the internet by the decades, starting with the 90s. Our next video will be on the 2000s, so if you guys have any internet memories from that era, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. And right before we get started, let me just get a few things out of the way. Shout out to these super cool people for becoming members of the channel. If you want to get exclusive videos, early access to our content, and a shout out in future videos, you can join today for just 99 cents. And if you haven't already, make sure to join our Discord server where you can chat with us and other viewers about our videos and get some teasers on upcoming projects. But I won't waste any more of your time. Grab your favorite snack, sit back and relax, and let's begin our dive into the 90s Internet Mysteries Iceberg. Pokegods. In the late 90s, rumors spread about secret, super powerful Pokemon hidden in red and blue. Some were based on evolutions of real Pokemon, others came from mistranslations or early leaks from Pokemon Gold and Silver, and some were completely made up. Fan sites like Pokemon Factory created fake designs and mock-ups just for fun, which were then passed around as proof that the Pokegods could be encountered in-game. One of the most famous examples was Peekaboo, a nickname given to Marill before its official reveal. The name caught on so strongly that it even showed up on an official Topps trading card, and there are dozens of posts describing the wild methods needed to obtain your own Peekaboo in Pokemon Red and Blue. In the end, none of it was real, but chasing Pokegods like Peekaboo became one of the most memorable parts of the Pokemon experience for many users of the early internet. Polybius. Polybius is one of the most famous urban legends in gaming and internet culture. It first appeared on August 3rd, 1998 in an anonymously authored entry on coinop.org describing a mysterious 1981 arcade game allegedly tested in Portland that caused memory loss, night terrors, and visits from men in black. The entry even claimed a ROM had been examined, complete with hidden copyright text, but the post initially drew little attention until February 27, 2000, when a USENET post on a forum for arcade machine collectors shared the page. While this mystery has been investigated thoroughly, even to this day, the truth is that by 2001, veteran collectors had already gotten to the bottom of it. In an archived post from 2001 on the same forum, you can see collectors blaming the hoax on Cyber Yogi, or Christian Oliver Windler, a gaming enthusiast known for elaborate hoaxes. The awkward pseudo-German name Sinneslotion and Windler's history of fabricating arcade lore led many by 2003 to conclude that he had likely invented Polybius as an online prank, though he never confirmed it. These days, Polybius has become one of the most iconic gaming urban legends and has even been referenced in shows like The Simpsons. Crouton.net. Crouton.net is a website that was created in the late 90s and officially launched by September 7, 1999. Upon going to the website, you're met with this. Do you see it? Here, I'll zoom in. That right there is a crouton. That's it. A 33 by 33 PNG of a crouton is the only thing on this website. So who made this website? Well, literally no one knows, and no one has ever come forward with a verifiable claim. There is barely any information online regarding this website. The only notable history it has on the internet is that it's part of the popular website theuselessweb.com, a simple website that has a button that will redirect you to a random interesting website. Most of them are memes, short games, or comedic infographics. And that's it. Crouton.net is literally just a picture of a crouton. AOL Keywords. Before most people in America were able to enjoy widespread access to high-speed internet services, AOL was the dominant early internet service provider. It allowed people to connect to the internet using dial-up modems, use chat rooms, browse news, and eventually access the World Wide Web. Beyond the basic ability to browse the internet, there were also keywords that were specific to AOL's ecosystem. They were essentially miniature web pages hosted by AOL that made interacting with URLs a lot simpler. Instead of seeing a website's URL in a commercial with http://www and .com, they could simply type the respective keyword into their AOL interface. Because the content within AOL keyword pages was hosted on AOL servers that have long since been offline, all of the interactive content that you would normally be able to view when installing AOL software from a CD is now inaccessible. While there are still a handful of existing screenshots of keyword pages and UI elements, many of the images, promotional material, and community discussions found within the web pages are now lost forever. Free Cup Holder. Free Cup Holder, or cupholder.exe, was a joke program that circulated on the internet in the late 90s. When run, the program would simply open the user's CD-ROM drive, giving them a nice place to set their drink. The origins of this file come from an urban legend that originated on USENET, which tells the story of a man who brought his computer into a repair shop because the cup holder had broken. No one knows exactly who created it, but cupholder.exe began circulating sometime after that. Y2K. Most people are probably familiar with the idea of Y2K, but fewer people know about the scams and discourse that circulated online at the time. For those who don't know, there was a computer system failure that was expected to happen on January 1st, 2000. The concern stemmed from the fact that many computer programs only stored dates as the last 2 digits of the year. This meant that when the year rolled over from 99 to 00, systems might interpret it as 1900 rather than 2000, potentially leading to calculation errors and system malfunctions. Most of the speculation was based on the idea that if computers all around the world were to stop operating due to the glitch, there would be global infrastructure collapse and trillions of dollars lost. Somehow, during this mass panic, the public somehow grabbed onto the idea that the world would end due to Y2K. In the wake of these rumors, a multitude of internet communities and real-world survivalist groups were born. Writers like Gary North, James Howard Kunstler, and Mike Owler wrote very popular guides on how to survive the upcoming collapse. In Mike Owler's book, he used his years of living off the grid to create multiple strategy guides for cleaning dirty water, making improvised shelters, and foraging edible foods in his book, titled The Hippie Survival Guide to Y2K. One of the earliest internet blogs created in the fear of a Y2K apocalypse was the Internet Year 2000 campaign. The campaign's initiative is as follows. The Internet Year 2000 campaign is a united effort of internet organizations attempting to raise awareness of the year 2000 date conversion problem and facilitate preparations and the sharing of information. On their website, you can find information like how to apply for power restoration if your power were to go out, how your servers can be tested for the upcoming change, and basically all global internet providers' news releases on how they're handling the situation. Other information wasn't so helpful. Many scam artists and opportunists saw the Y2K scare as an easy way to make money, flooding the internet with questionable solutions and overpriced survival kits. Some offered software patches, claiming they could Y2K-proof home computers for a large fee. But this exploitation wasn't limited to just scam artists. Legitimate businesses also found a way to capitalize on the panic. Insurance companies and electronic retailers used it to promote their brand. Insurance companies rolled out special promotional rates promising coverage for Y2K-related business losses, while electronic retailers framed the event as an excuse for customers to buy more products. Best Buy even sold branded stickers reminding customers to power down their computers before December 31st, 1999, turning the bug into a marketing opportunity. Now that we're more than 25 years removed from Y2K, we can see it for what it really was. A mix of mass hysteria and an enormous behind-the-scenes effort by programmers who had spent years quietly fixing the problem before it could happen. When January 1st, 2000 finally arrived, there were some initial errors, but they were resolved quickly and without any large-scale shutdowns. So, if you're ever wondering how to survive a digital apocalypse, just go visit eBay and buy a $7 guide. It has everything you need to know. At least, I think so. The Dancing Baby. The Dancing Baby is a 3D rendered video featuring, as you might expect, a dancing baby. This video surfaced in the fall of 1996 when LucasArts animator Ron Lucier made edits to a sample file in the character animation software Autodesk. After Lucier shared the video with a few coworkers, the baby set off on its journey around the world in email chains, instantly becoming a global phenomenon. Remixes, modifications, and even fan pages quickly appeared, some of which still exist to this day. Often cited as one of the first viral videos, the dancing baby has cemented itself as an iconic part of early internet culture. L is Real 2401. L is Real 2401 was a rumor spread in the late 1990s and early 2000s that Luigi was playable in Mario 64. The legend stems from this blurry sign in the courtyard area of Mario's castle, which, according to some users, read, L is Real 2401. This was thought to be a hint from the developers that Luigi was real and there was a hidden method to unlock him. While the earliest mentions of this rumor are lost to time, a few websites from the late 90s and early 2000s include detailed instructions for unlocking Luigi. These usually consisted of extremely tedious lists of tasks, and skeptics were accused of simply performing the rituals incorrectly. The myth was so widespread that in 1996, IGN put out a $100 bounty for anyone that could provide a working method and put the debate to rest. Unfortunately, this bounty was never claimed. However, the story doesn't end there. L is Real popped back into the news cycle in 2020 when gigabytes of Nintendo source code were leaked onto 4chan, including early prototypes for Mario 64. Among the leaked files was a working model of Luigi, confirming that he had been intended for the game at some point during development. After more than 2 decades of speculation, fans finally had closure to one of gaming's longest-running urban legends. Shock sites. One of the more notorious remembrances of the early web was shock sites. Shock sites usually disguise themselves as harmless and innocuous things to lure unsuspecting users into clicking on them without knowing the true content of what they were about to see. Anyone old enough to remember just how pervasive these were has a handful of stories about their first experiences with shock sites. For many, it started with something as simple as coming across a hyperlink on a forum linking to what they were told was a photo gallery of adorable puppies, only to be met with the most disturbing and repulsive imagery imaginable. Shock sites featured horrifying content like gore and death footage, extreme fetish content, and less graphic but equally disgusting gross-out humor. Most people who were active online in this era were haunted by these images. I don't suggest searching for these, but among the most popular are Goatsy, Lemon Party, Meat Spin, Tub Girl, the list goes on. If you went to public school in the United States, I'm sure you're all familiar with the trope of the first kid to find out about 2 girls, 1 cup, and how he suddenly needed to show it to everybody. Shock sites plagued the internet for the better part of 2 decades, but by the mid-2010s, they became less of an issue online as a lot of web hosting services outright banned them, and search engines and browsers also began blocking them. Despite the declining prevalence of these sites in recent years, the unforgettable imagery that early internet users had to endure has been seared into their memory forever. Cow Level. Cow Level was a rumor of a secret level of Diablo that got its start on early fan sites and message boards. In 1997, members of the alt.games.diablo newsgroup would speculate on different methods to access a hidden level filled with cows, often to the dismay of more skeptical fans. Like many other gaming urban legends from this time, the instructions usually involved lists of tedious tasks and were fueled by confirmations from other players that they had reached the mysterious level. Some variations of the rumor even included faked screenshots showing a battle between a player and the mythical Cow King. Developers quickly caught wind of the joke. When Sierra released the Diablo Hellfire expansion in late 1997, they hid a reference to the rumor, a side quest with an NPC dressed in a cow suit named the Complete Nut. This quest wasn't accessible through normal play. You had to tweak a file in the game's directory to even trigger it. By the time Diablo 2 was in development, the joke had become so iconic within the community that Blizzard decided to finally make it real. The secret Moo Moo Farm level of Diablo 2 included hordes of hell bovines, led by the infamous Cow King. From there, the cow level pretty much became part of Blizzard's identity. It's popped up in different forms across nearly all of their games, and has even been referenced in games from other developers. At this point, the cow level is less of a secret and more of a tradition, all born from a newsgroup rumor that just wouldn't die. The Blair Witch Project. In the early days of the internet, film marketing wasn't really seen on the web. Producers and distribution companies like Warner Brothers and Disney usually focused on using commercials or word of mouth to promote their movies. But in 1998, during the marketing campaign for the Blair Witch Project, film producer Kevin Fox hired the Klein and Walker PR firm to create promotional material for the movie. They created a bunch of marketing images and, most importantly, a website. The website featured fabricated interviews, police reports, and news articles about a group of missing teenagers. To say this website was effective is a massive understatement. Thousands of people flocked to the site, convinced that everything it was saying was real and actually happened. The campaign extended beyond the internet too. While the film was screening at festivals and small theaters, the PR firm distributed flyers and posters urging the public to report any information on the missing teenagers. Even after the film's release, the internet shenanigans continued. It's unclear whether this was orchestrated by fans or the PR team, but for several months, the movie's IMDb page listed every credited actor as missing or presumed dead. Today, the original Blair Witch website has been quietly taken offline, but archived versions can still be accessed through the Wayback Machine, preserving one of the most famous viral marketing campaigns in film history. Heaven's Gate Cult Suicide. Just a warning, this next entry includes discussion of a cult and their following mass suicides, so if you don't want to hear about stuff like that, skip to the timestamp shown on screen. In March 1997, the Heaven's Gate religious group carried out a mass suicide in Rancho Santa Fe, California, resulting in the deaths of 39 members. The group had believed Earth was about to be recycled and that the only way to ascend to the next level was to leave their human bodies, which they called vehicles. They thought that their souls would then join a spaceship traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet, which they saw as their salvation. While the story behind the Heaven's Gate suicides is tragic, and it's remembered today as one of the most infamous cults of all time, its appearance on this iceberg is related to the group's website. In 1996, the cult created a website to host their beliefs and teachings. The website hasn't been updated much since its creation, with a lot of the same titles and headers appearing on the front page almost 30 years later. The website interestingly has a subpage titled Our Position Against Suicide, but of course it doesn't actually take any position against suicide, and instead reframes it. Members of the cult wrote that the true meaning of suicide is to, quote, turn against the next level when it is being offered, while also making use of a bunch of doomsday-esque language about the final days and their last attempts. Right before the mass suicides were carried out, the group updated their website to display the message, Hale-Bopp brings closure to Heaven's Gate. Our 22 years of classroom here on planet Earth is finally coming to conclusion. graduation from the human evolutionary level. We are happily prepared to leave this world and go with T's crew. The website still exists today, and if you have some free time, I would suggest checking it out as it's all very surreal. From the 90s web design aesthetics and color palettes to the crazy ramblings of the cult, the whole thing is just really eerie. It feels almost as if the entire website has been frozen in time, completely unmoving and unupdated since 1996. Despite not changing, there are still 2 surviving members that we know of that still maintain the website and respond to online inquiries. While the cult has been inactive for almost 30 years at this point, they surprisingly turned up in the media very recently when the surviving members became upset with the rapper Lil Uzi Vert. Lil Uzi teased that he would be using a design similar to the website's graphic for his 2020 album Eternal Atake, which he later changed after the surviving members threatened a lawsuit. I don't know about you guys, but if I believed that all my friends were chilling on a UFO with Jesus and they told me I had to stick around on Earth to respond to emails and get mad at musicians, I would be pretty pissed. Our First Time. OurFirstTime.com was a website in 1998 which featured the photographs and stories of Diana and Mike. According to the website, the couple saw the live birth of a child streamed on the internet and felt inspired to share their own take on the beautiful cycle of life by live streaming themselves losing their virginity. By July 18th, 1998, the website was bringing in millions of users a day, being lambasted by Rush Limbaugh, and even being read verbatim in the US Congress. Over the next 18 days, there were to be new storyboards and pictures posted every day, following the couple as they got tested for STDs, told to their parents, and more, all leading up to the climax on August 4th. But then, on July 21st, all 18 days of the script were unceremoniously posted at once, with the finale being replaced with a simple script where the couple instead decides to wait until college. So what happened? Well, behind the scenes, Diana and Mike were actually actors Michelle Parma and Ty Taylor, who were both 23 at the time. The couple had been paid off by producer Ken Tipton, who planned to charge users $5 for age verification, and run off with the money when the couple decided to abstain. Unfortunately for Ken, the site lost its sponsor when they realized the whole thing was a sham, and they pulled out before the events of the script could unfold. After the failure of the project, Tipton insisted it was always meant to be a public service announcement about safe sex. Unfortunately, the site didn't leave behind any great moral awakening, just a bizarre footnote in internet history, remembered as one of the web's first large-scale hoaxes. Good Times virus hoax. The Good Times virus was a hoax orchestrated by the hacker collective Cult of the Dead Cow in 1994. The hoax began circulating via email sometime in 1994, typically appearing with the subject title of Good Time. Inside the email would be a disclaimer warning the recipient of the email that the email contained a dangerous virus, advising them to delete the email immediately. The emails usually claimed that simply opening the email would result in your computer being compromised to viruses and hackers, commonly using completely nonsensical computer jargon like the virus using a quote, infinite binary loop or a ASCII buffer overflow. Eventually the emails stopped being sent, and in 1997, Cult of the Dead Cow released a statement saying they distributed the emails with the intention of proving the gullibility of self-proclaimed internet experts. In the years following the hoax, it's been described as one of the most successful virus hoaxes of all time, mainly due to the fact it spread so quickly, simply by telling people to inform their friends of a potential threat. So yeah, in essence, it never existed, but it stood as a good mystery for a while and wound up becoming a great example of how stupid internet users were in the 90s. Markovian Parallax Denigrate. In August 1996, multiple Usenet message groups were bombarded with hundreds of cryptic messages using the subject title Markovian Parallax Denigrate. The messages looked like someone had taken a dictionary and scanned it while flipping through its pages, resulting in these massive walls of gibberish. Early recipients of these text walls dismissed them as spam, but their unpredictability and scale soon made them infamous as one of the internet's earliest mysteries. One popular theory among those who have attempted to decode the texts is that the messages were generated by an early Markov chain program that was stringing random words together based on patterns. In 2016, journalist Kevin Morris would track the messages to an email address belonging to University of Wisconsin student Susan Lindauer. Lindauer denied any involvement, and it was later determined that her address was used to conceal the true sender. To this day, no one knows who sent these messages or what their purpose truly was, and it remains one of the most important fossils in internet mystery-solving communities. Hell.com. Hell.com was created by artist Kenneth Aronson around 1994. At first, visitors were greeted by a plain black screen with the message, "This is a private domain. You must be invited." If you clicked the link, or simply waited about a minute, the page would start flashing red and black with bold red text reading, "Go home," while the browser tab's title flashed, "Big mistake." By 1996, the site had been updated. Now, the homepage featured a single hyperlinked image that led to a page containing 3 links. The first, "No access," opened a disclaimer stating, "This is a parallel web. There is no public access. The waiting list is approximately 18 to 22 months. Clicking Apply brought you to a form requesting your email address and payment information, while a button labeled Don't simply closed the page. The second link, Redemption, led to another page with a link titled Soul Redemption Program. Clicking it triggered hundreds of questions to fly toward the screen, prompting you to click for answers. Ignoring the questions and clicking a nearby Yes link instead brought you to another payment page, this time offering donation amounts ranging from $10 to $10,000. The third page actually wasn't added until 10 years later in 2006, and it's probably the weirdest out of all of them. It was called Search, and upon clicking it, you were brought to a basic Google search box. However, when you searched specific keywords, you would be brought to strange pages on the Hell.com website. The most notable keyword was answer. Typing it and pressing enter brought up an image of a naked bald woman falling through darkness. After a few seconds, the page automatically redirected to signenoir.com, a portfolio site for Kenneth Aronson featuring his biography and a gallery of his artwork. Sadly, in 2011, the domain would be disabled by Kenneth and later bought by a church. It seems like the website now redirects you to mybible.com, a website that apparently lets you read the Bible together with your friends anywhere. So yeah, Hell.com wasn't actually a cursed website that drags you to the underworld when you visit it. It was just a freaky website used by an artist to host various works of his and others. Hotmail password. In August 1999, Hotmail users experienced what was called the most widespread security incident in the history of the web. A Swedish hacker group called Hackers Unite went public with a flaw they'd found, saying this: "We did not do this hack to destroy. We want to show the world how bad the security on Microsoft really is. And that company nearly has a monopoly on all computer software." The trick was absurdly simple. By typing EH as the password, you could get into any Hotmail account you wanted. Microsoft insisted it wasn't an intentional backdoor, but it was live for weeks before anyone noticed. Once the story broke, the exploit spread everywhere, and Microsoft had to rush out a patch the same day to lock things down. Bill 62B. Bill 62B was a proposed bill in the US Congress that would authorize the US Postal Service to impose a 5-cent surcharge on each email. A set of emails went around in the late 1990s, urging internet users to write to their congressmen in order to stop this serious threat to internet freedom. Thankfully, lawmakers were pressured by the thousands of emails they received. Bill 62B was never passed, and the internet rejoiced. Of course, the main obstacle this bill had in getting passed was the fact that it never existed at all. The viral email included references to Congressman Tony Schnell, 3 different law firms, and an editorial in the Washingtonian, all of which were completely made up. The hoax actually started as a Canadian chain email, which was later adapted for American and Australian audiences before being spread like wildfire. The only real thing about Bill 62B was the response from lawmakers. In the wake of the public backlash to the imaginary bill, the US Congress did actually write specific language into law preventing an email tax from ever existing. In the end, while it never had a chance of becoming law, Bill 62B's reach was proof of how quickly misinformation could spread online, especially in the internet's early days. Scientology versus the Internet. Scientology, widely described as a cult, was founded in 1953 by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard. It relies on keeping its teachings secret, only revealing them to members who have paid large sums of money, often through a long series of courses and auditing sessions. With the advent of the internet in the early 90s, and documents becoming easier to copy and share, the Church of Scientology found it increasingly difficult to keep its secret materials hidden. In the mid-1990s, the church launched an aggressive campaign to stamp out leaks through lawsuits, takedowns, and intimidation. This sparked a fierce online backlash that became known as Scientology versus the Internet. It all started in 1994 when secret teachings, especially the OT levels, began surfacing on the Usenet group alt.religion.scientology. Among them was the infamous Xenu story, revealed only to members who had paid thousands of dollars to reach the OT3 level. It describes an alien dictator who brought billions of people to Earth 75 million years ago, stacked them around volcanoes, and killed them with hydrogen bombs. The church responded with lawsuits and takedown threats aimed at anyone distributing the documents. Around the same time, the church also distributed special software to its members, claiming it was to protect them from unapproved material. In reality, the program blocked access to alt.religion.scientology, anti-Scientology websites, and even mentions of certain critics' names, effectively cutting members off from outside perspectives. In 1995, another large batch of internal Scientology writings appeared on Usenet under the name Scamizdat, a play on Samizdat, the Soviet-era term for underground literature circulated in defiance of censorship. Around this time, the church tried to have alt.religion.scientology removed from Usenet entirely. When those threats were ignored, it escalated further. On February 13, 1995, Scientology lawyers joined federal marshals in seizing computers and files from the homes of several people accused of leaking documents, including prominent critics in the United States, the Netherlands, and Sweden. Some anti-Scientology groups felt so threatened by the raids that they were forced to shut down entirely. The crackdown didn't stop the leaks, and by 1996, entire websites began springing up to host Scientology's hidden writings. One of the most prominent was Xenu.net, which posted the full OT3 and Xenu materials for anyone to read. This site actually became the #1 suggested result when searching for certain Scientology terms, which prompted the church to threaten Google with more lawsuits and DMCA claims. Google eventually folded to the pressure and removed the site from search results, but public outrage forced Google to restore the site, and the website grew even more popular. The Scientology rabbit hole goes so much deeper, and the church has been involved in more internet controversies than I could possibly cover in this video, so this entry will have to be cut a bit short. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in a deeper dive into the church's long history of online battles, and I'll start digging if there's enough interest. The Secret. The Secret is a puzzle book published in 1982 by Byron Price, composed of 12 verses with a corresponding painting. In the 1990s, a dedicated online community formed around the treasure hunt. Enthusiasts built and maintained a collaborative website to pool theories and help coordinate treasure hunting efforts. The puzzles could be solved by matching the paintings to the verses and solving the resulting riddle, which would lead to a location in North America where a ceramic vase, or cask as Byron called them, would be buried, waiting to be unearthed. Since 1982, only 2 of the 12 casks have been found, and Byron has since passed away in a car accident in 2005. Despite decades passing, the search continues. Online communities, treasure hunting forums, and documentary coverage are all still out there, all hoping to play a part in finding the remaining 10 casks. 1-800-GOLF TIP. 1-800-GOLF-TIP was a strange phone number from the late 1990s that when called would play the voice of a man counting from 1 to 10 on loop for around 12 minutes. After those 12 minutes, a loud shrieking siren sound would play, jump-scaring anyone on the other end of the phone. For the last 3 decades, especially during the 90s, numerous individuals who encountered the phone number have gone to the internet to share their experience. The origin of the phone number isn't entirely known, but the earliest report comes from Reddit user Oh I Get Jokes, who claimed in 1994 they saw a billboard promoting the phone number across the street from the Lincoln Theater. OK I Get Jokes described the billboard as a large, full-color close-up of a golf ball and club angled away from the camera, sitting on a grassy patch with 1-800-GOLF-TIP written in big, yellow, 3D lettering. Luckily enough, this claim from 1994 is actually verifiable. In an archived posting from the Carleton's independent student newspaper, 1-800-GOLF-TIP is among a list compiling 10 topics that students like, dislike, or don't care about. So what really was 1-800-GOLF-TIP? Well, it's not fully solved, but we do have a good idea of what went down. In the early 90s, the Professional Golfers Association wanted to get in on the boom of 1-800 numbers. Every time you opened a phone book, the front page would be a giant list of 1-800 numbers you could call to get information on your city, daily jokes, and hear what movies were coming out. So in result of the popularity, 1-800-GOLF-TIP was made. Once the phone number was live, you could call 1-800-GOLF-TIP to get golf advice from, quote, nearly 100 PGA members. Strangely, the line was only available for 2 days, December 3rd and 4th of 1994. When it was eventually shut down by the PGA, you could still call the number, but since it was shut down, it would go through a step-by-step switching system that would redirect you to a separate number used by the same phone company. That's why you get that test recording of someone counting to 10 and eventually hear a siren, which is actually the tone that plays when a telephone switching system can't obtain the number you're dialing. We actually called the number for ourselves, and here's a clip.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So what was the reason for the billboard? Well, that's also simple. The PGA must have been planning to have this number active for a while, so they preemptively paid for billboards in areas that had a lot of golf courses. The 1-800 idea didn't pan out as they thought, and they discontinued the number almost immediately after announcing it. 973-Etnama973.com. The website 973-Etnama973, or the human spelled backwards, is a sprawling, maze-like network of over 3,000 interconnected pages filled with cryptic text, surreal imagery, number tables, and hidden links. It mixes Bible verses, Egyptian gods, and other occult references, treating them like puzzle pieces that are meant to reveal hidden truths about humanity and the universe. While the content itself is certainly mysterious, we actually do know a bit about the creator. Born in 1939, British artist David Denison is a surrealist painter that was most active in the 1970s. He's even been described as, quote, one of the leading exponents of surrealism in Britain during that era. He was largely self-taught and worked as a prison officer and medical instructor in West Yorkshire, but always made time for his paintings and numerological theories. Denison considers the website the culmination of his life's work. As one site passage explains, his paintings were stepping stones leading to the site's emergence, and much of his work is embodied within the fabric of the site. The site has now been online for over 2 decades, steadily growing under Denison's care. Now in his 80s, Denison still updates the content regularly. In 2023, he affirmed he was adding to the site this day and every day, weaving the thread of the golden web. Users estimate the site contains thousands of pages, with some suggesting over 3,000 pages of content spread out among the branching paths of hidden links. Over the years, the site has gained a reputation as a kind of ARG, or alternate reality game. While it doesn't quite fit a traditional ARG since there's no obvious win condition, that hasn't stopped fans from trying to piece together theories or solve the website. The site's own forum, The Oracle, is filled with people who have spent months or even years studying the pages and trying to get to the bottom of the mystery. On one forum post, a user thanks Denison with the following: "Out of everywhere I've ever been on the internet, this is the one site that's always felt like home. Your site has had more influence on me than even my own parents." Reactions to 973 Etnama 973 from the rest of the internet are much more varied, with responses ranging from deep respect and fascination to outright skepticism, to people who find the whole thing unsettling or even creepy. But whether you see it as a work of art or just rambling nonsense, 973 Etnama 973 has carved out a strange, intriguing place online as an ever-expanding maze that keeps pulling people back in, looking for answers that might not even exist. Eric Harris's websites. Just a warning, this next entry includes some brief discussion of the events of the Columbine massacre. If you don't want to hear about stuff like that, skip to the timestamp being shown on screen. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were mass murderers that shot and killed 12 students and a teacher, as well as injuring 24 others during what is now known as the Columbine High School Massacre. Before the massacre, Eric Harris hosted a number of websites where he chronicled his ramblings, as well as web pages for his Quake clan that included Dylan Klebold and their friend Zach Heckler. The websites also included random online shenanigans Eric and his friends got up to, like a list of 95 Yo Mama jokes written by the group. Unfortunately, they didn't really understand the format of Yo Mama jokes. These are some of my favorites. Yo Mama likes public parks so much that she goes there every afternoon and stays for hours. Yo Mama believes in Santa Claus so much that sometimes she stays up late and watches the sky on Christmas Eve. And finally, Yo Mama is so fat, the people say, "Damn, there's a obese woman." While some of these websites are pretty humorous in nature, others are just downright disturbing and give a really eerie perspective into the eventual massacre that Eric and Dylan were planning. There's a handful of pages that simply show song lyrics, giving some insight into the twisted worldview that Eric had. The content of the lyrics echoed the natural selection and anarchist sentiments that both Eric and Dylan were heavy believers of, as well as references to an inevitable apocalypse and paramilitarism. Eric also created websites where he talked about his general disdain for the world and ranted about people he disliked in his neighborhood, even doxing specific residents with their full address and personal phone numbers. There were also details of how the group defaced houses in the neighborhood and generally terrorized the population around town. Eric also explained his plans and updates in the duo's attempts to create weapons and explosives like pipe bombs and napalm. In one of the more disturbing rants written before the attack, Eric goes on a violent rant about all the people he believes need to be wiped from the earth and explains his intent to shoot and kill those he doesn't like. I won't be reading the text verbatim as it's pretty disturbing, but if you want to pause and read it for yourself, it's on screen right now. Aside from the rants on the web pages, Eric also hosted some custom-made Doom maps that he created. He hosted the WAD files for these maps on his personal websites for others to play, and a lot of the files are still available to download to this day. The maps he made are generally pretty normal custom maps, but there's one specific file that's particularly disturbing. The file I'm referring to is mentioned in the FBI's official Columbine report and is among one of the missing pieces of media from Eric's website. The map is titled realdoom.wad, and it is a one-for-one replica of Columbine High School. And, according to the FBI's report, Eric would spawn in enemies and practice how he would carry out the massacre inside the game. After the massacre, the FBI seized Eric's website domains and forced AOL to remove most of the HTML files, making a lot of the original information pages about his Doom and Quake clan pieces of lost media. Despite this, most of the journal entry-style rants and video game-related content he hosted are still available to view through archives. Publius Enigma. In 1994, users on the alt.music.pinkfloyd Usenet group received a strange message from someone calling themselves Publius. The message claimed there was a hidden puzzle inside Pink Floyd's album, The Division Bell, that, if solved, would lead to a reward. One of the messages reads as follows: "As some of you have expected, The Division Bell is not like its predecessors. Although all great music is subject to multiple interpretations, in this case, there is a central purpose and a designed solution. For the ingenious person or group of persons who recognizes this and where this information points to, a unique prize has been secreted." The mystery deepened when, during a Pink Floyd concert in New Jersey, the word Enigma appeared in bright lights on the stage, proving the band or someone close to them was aware of the messages. This was before social media, so fans on forums and in fan clubs scrambled to decipher lyrics, album art, and even stage lighting patterns, convinced there was a hidden message. People speculated the puzzle involved references to communication, isolation, and the Cold War, all central themes of the Division Bell. Some thought it was a marketing stunt by EMI Records, while others believed it was a deeper message from the band about human connection. Despite years of theories and attempts, the Publius Enigma has never been solved, and no official prize was ever claimed. Pink Floyd's members gave vague answers when asked about it in interviews, with some denying involvement, while others hinted there was something to it. Publius Enigma remains a really bizarre, unsolved mystery and rabbit hole from the early internet. CR6. Just a warning, this next entry includes discussion of suicide and self-harm topics. If you don't want to hear about that kind of stuff, skip to the timestamp shown on screen. CR6, also known as Clickable Reality 6, was an ambitious interactive web series created in 1997 by software developer Chris McKinstry that is now almost entirely lost. The web series is widely regarded as the first internet-based soap opera or just simply web series in some debates. CR6 wasn't a video series. Instead, it created its story and episodes via photos and interactive website elements that users could click to read the narrative. In terms of content, it's not really clear what CR6 was about, but we do have a vague outline. Through the little evidence we have, it's suggested that the series featured 6 central characters who meet at a funeral in the fictional town of Mesmer's Cove. The characters' names and descriptions were mentioned in a 1997 promotional video. Michelle Paddington, a businesswoman who's always hatching a new scheme, Anna Frobisher, a former model turned alcoholic that takes a backseat to no one, Alberto Ashland, a lover of woman, style, and mystery, Wayne Donaldson, a former professional football player whose heart is as big as his muscles, Elizabeth Sands, a quote, devil-may-care freewheeling artist, and Victor Larson, a strange, shady man with a passion for mind games. Supposedly, 9 episodes of the series were posted on the website, with additional episodes having been written and planned to begin shooting. And that is basically everything we have on the plot. The way the series was rediscovered is actually pretty interesting. In August 2021, a Reddit user made a post on r/lostmedia recounting how he discovered the Lost show. In the original post, the OP states he was watching an episode of Better Call Saul while simultaneously scrolling the Wikipedia page. He noticed that a small side character was played by TV actor Brendan Fair, and upon searching through the edit history on Brendan's wiki page, he found a sentence that mentioned him being cast in an early internet soap opera titled CR6. This then prompted the OP to begin digging into the Chris McKinstry rabbit hole, creating a huge search and bringing a lot of traffic to his original Reddit post, where he details a bunch of research he did. Before the creation of CR6, McKinstry envisioned it as a series using a new and groundbreaking medium that combined narrative story with the interactivity that the internet provided. Early reviews on Yahoo and even a whole CNN segment praised the concept. However, despite McKinstry's bold and zealous attitude towards the series, the production was disastrous. Information regarding the production is virtually impossible to find online, so most of it is simply word of mouth from the CR6 crew. Basically every single person, from writers, photographers, actors, and other staff, were never paid. Faced with the catastrophic fallout after production and reportedly losing over $1 million, Chris McKinstry fled to Chile to avoid the debts. Even though McKinstry was entirely responsible for the mismanaged funding of the project, he still blamed the cast, calling them, quote, a bunch of amateur writers with no balls. On January 23, 2006, Chris committed suicide in his apartment in Chile. He posted a suicide note online, with part of it reading, I am tired of feeling the same feelings and experiencing the same experiences. It is time to move on and see what is next, if anything. As of August 2025, CR6 is still entirely lost, and the only leads available are very vague and haven't led anywhere. If you're interested in getting the minute details of the leads, you can check out the Lost Media Wiki's entry on CR6, and of course, if you have any new information on the web series, leave a comment down below. TimeCube. In the late 90s, Otis Jean Ray created a personal website called timecube.com, a website that hosted a brightly colored wall of text where Ray claimed to have discovered the truth about time and how each day is actually made up of 4 days, all happening at once. And yes, the web design is as disorienting as it sounds. There are little to no hyperlinks or subpages. It's literally just one incredibly long wall of text that scrolls from the top of the page to the bottom. Beyond claiming that his theory is the truth behind how time works, he also claimed that mainstream institutional science and education were suppressing his theory and that the people of the world have actually been taught pseudoscience for centuries. Ray's writing style was super frantic, and the long, sprawling string of text on the website reads as mostly stream of consciousness ramblings, with bold words written in all caps, repeating phrases, and insults towards anyone that disagreed with his theory. He was so convicted in his belief of cubicism that he offered $10,000 to anyone that could disprove it. Of course, the caveat being that the theory is so incomprehensible and nonsensical that it can't necessarily be fundamentally disproven. He even encouraged people to commit acts of violence against those that disagreed with his theory, with one part of the website reading, "If ignorant of the almighty TimeCube creation truth, you deserve to be killed. Killing you is not immoral, but justified to save life on Earth for future generations." A lot of Ray's writing positions himself as a deity or someone above God, and he often called himself the wisest human. There's also a lot of theoretical tie-ins and references to religion and spirituality made on the website, adding to the site's theme of delusions of grandeur and mania. There's 2 pages to the website, with the second page being hyperlinked at the very bottom of the first. The second page is pretty much identical to the first in terms of its content, but with a bunch of crazy FAQs and about pages where Ray talks about how he has power above God and warns about mind control and other crazy stuff. A psychiatrist evaluating Ray's behavior diagnosed him with schizophrenia, which I'm sure most of you probably already assumed he was suffering from. Otis Eugene Ray passed away on March 18, 2015, at the age of 87. The TimeCube website's registration expired in August of 2015, but still exists today through archives. WhiteHouse.com. WhiteHouse.com is an infamous website from the 90s. It's not entirely clear who originally made the website, as multiple sources list a Ransom Scott or Dan Parisi as the original creator, but we do know the domain was bought sometime in 1996 to 1997. Originally, the website simply hosted commentary and parody comics on US politics. That was until Dan Parisi noticed the traffic the website was getting and realized a way to make money from the domain. So what did he do? Well, he turned it into porn. Not just any porn, but political porn, featuring photoshopped images of Hillary Clinton in a gimp suit whipping Bill Clinton on a leash, as well as a ton of pictures of Hillary's head slapped onto naked models' bodies. This was a major concern for the US government, and they did release statements saying they were working on finding a way to shut it down, but Parisi was able to argue that the domain was under parody law since Bill and Hillary Clinton are public figures, and the White House can't be trademarked. Eventually, the website would take down all of its content and shift through various different versions. For some time, the website was used as a real estate site. Then it was a forum for politics. Then, it briefly became a search engine for the white pages, and there's like 30 other iterations the website went through, like being a hub for finding a disability lawyer, so I won't go into every single one. Today, you can still access the website as it's still run by Dan Parisi. However, you won't find any adult content. As of July 2025, the website is currently hosting political gambling, but I don't really understand how it works. There's literally 7 percentage-based polls which you can vote yes or no on, which is normal, but apparently you can bet on them? At the bottom of the website, it explains how it works. Make an account, get your $500 in, make your picks, allocate up to $100 on any question. You can always change your picks. Up to election day, you can make changes to your picks play money. If anyone watching this video has actually used WhiteHouse.com to bet on politics, please let me know in the comments. I'm actually really interested in knowing how this works and if it's legit. Laurence Canter and Martha Siegel. Laurence A. Canter and Martha S. Siegel were 2 lawyers that are best known for pulling off the first large-scale commercial spam operation on the internet. In early 1994, Canter and Siegel wanted to promote their legal service for helping clients enter the United States Green Card Lottery, which offered a limited number of visas to non-citizens. On April 12, 1994, they carried out the spam attack with a Perl script written by a programmer known as Jason, which would post the same advertisement to over 5,500 Usenet groups. Instead of cross-posting the same post to multiple sites, they would make individual posts to each group, causing people to see the ad over and over throughout their newsfeed. Immediately afterwards, their internet service provider was flooded with so many complaints that their mail servers crashed for 2 days. There are actually still archived records of frustrated Usenet posters describing the creative ways they wished to get revenge on Laurence and Martha. While their service provider shut off their internet just days after the attack, the pair did not give up easily. Just 2 months after the first spam wave, they struck again, sending an ad to another 1,000 groups. But this time, the internet was ready. German programmer Arndt Gulbrandsen had prepared one of the world's first cancel bots, a script that automatically killed posts matching certain rules, wiping them from users' news feeds and shutting down the couple's final spam run. In the years following the posts, the pair reportedly made between $100,000 to $200,000 from the campaign. They began doing commercial spamming for clients and published a few books on guerrilla marketing. In 1997, the Tennessee Supreme Court actually disbarred Canter, partly for illegal advertising. Since then, the couple has been laying low, mostly fading into internet history as the parents of modern spam. While this story has been over for decades now, it's still funny to go back and see just how upset people got at the brand new concept of spam. John Titor. In 1998, a mysterious man named John Titor sent 2 faxes to a radio show that discussed paranormal activity. In these faxes, Titor would recount a story set after the supposed Y2K disaster, which many believed was coming soon. The story also claimed that time travel would be invented in 2036. About 2 years later, Titor would begin posting on the Time Travel Institute forums under the username timetravel_0. On the forums, Titor claimed he was a soldier from the year 2036 sent on a time travel mission. According to his story, he supposedly traveled back in time to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer in order to debug various computer programs that existed in the future, possibly in reference to the supposed 2038 computer date problem, which is basically the Y2K bug in the future. Titor made hundreds of posts on the Time Travel Institute forums, providing elaborate explanations of how time machines worked, why he was chosen for the IBM 5100 mission, and even time travel stories claiming he traveled to the year 2000 to retrieve family photos before the war broke out. Yes, you heard that right. Titor claimed that multiple wars would occur between 1998 and 2036, including a United States Civil War in 2008 and a catastrophic nuclear world war in 2015 that resulted in the deaths of billions. There's basically an entire book's worth of material out of John Titor's posts. For example, he posted a bunch of stories where he time traveled with his grandfather, so I won't go into every single post thoroughly. Thankfully, the hoax didn't last long. People started quickly discovering numerous plot holes, inconsistencies, and incorrect predictions in Titor's posts. Once Titor had officially stopped posting, the forum conversation shifted from asking him questions to questioning who was behind Titor. Well, weirdly enough, no one actually knows who was behind John Titor. Somehow, the internet latched onto entertainment lawyer Larry Haber when a 2009 blog post loosely tied Larry and his computer scientist brother to the creation of John Titor in 1998. Fast forward to 2018, Joseph Matheny came forward claiming he was a consultant for the team that made John Titor. Matheny stated that Titor was a literature project by a group of people who wanted to replicate what he had done with one of his fictional internet creations, so he helped them with the project. Today, we know that John Titor wasn't real, but still don't know who was behind the persona. Even then, his legacy lives on as John Titor has influenced a multitude of fiction novels, comic books, and movies. The character also apparently plays an integral part to the story of 2009 visual novel and anime series Steins Gate. I haven't seen the show, but if anyone watching this has, I'd love to hear an explanation in the comments. Just a warning, the next 3 entries include discussion of incredibly disturbing true crime cases related to murder and extreme abuse. If you don't want to hear about stuff like that, skip to the timestamp that's being shown on screen. This is the final disclaimer for the video, and the other entries beyond the following 3 have no disturbing content. Murder of Sharon Lopatka. Sharon Rena Lopatka was an internet entrepreneur from Hampstead, Maryland. By all accounts from her classmates, she seemed like a perfectly ordinary girl. In 1991, she married her husband, Victor, and the two settled into a ranch-style home in rural Hampstead. From there, Sharon explored a variety of online ventures, selling home decor guides through her website, House of Dion, writing ad copy for early internet campaigns, offering psychic readings, and running a number of small side businesses under different aliases. But behind the scenes, Sharon's online life was very different from the one she presented to friends and family. She spent hours in niche chat rooms that catered to unusual and extreme sexual fetishes. It was in one of these spaces that she met Robert Frederick Glass, a computer analyst from North Carolina, and shared with him her deepest fantasy. She wanted to be tortured to death. Over the next 6 weeks, their messages became a constant back and forth, ultimately filling more than 900 pages of emails. They discussed in vivid detail the exact circumstances of an in-person meeting, planning out the time, the place, and the role each of them would play. On October 13th, Sharon told her husband she was traveling to Georgia to visit friends, leaving him a note asking that no one be blamed if she did not return. In reality, she was headed to Lenore, North Carolina to meet Robert. When Victor found the note, he immediately contacted police. Investigators arrived at the Lopatka home and discovered the extensive email correspondence between Sharon and Robert. 3 days later, on October 16th, Sharon died at Robert's home from strangulation during what Robert claimed was a consensual scenario that went wrong. The autopsy suggested the possibility of an accident, but law enforcement remained suspicious. Robert was ultimately charged and pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter, receiving a maximum 4-year sentence. He died of a heart attack just weeks before his scheduled release. This case is notable not only because of its unusual circumstances, but because it was one of the first widely reported deaths linked directly to an online arrangement. Even with an autopsy suggesting the possibility of an accident, the extensive planning and chat room evidence has left lingering questions about what Robert and Sharon intended to happen that night. To this day, the Sharon Lopatka case remains one of the strangest and most debated true crime stories of the early internet era. Murder of Amy Boyer. On October 15, 1999, 20-year-old Amy Boyer left her job at a Nashua, New Hampshire dental office, unaware of the danger waiting for her in the parking lot. As she walked to her car, a former high school classmate named Liam Ewens ambushed her, opening fire with a handgun and fatally shooting her as she tried to leave work. He then turned the gun on himself, ending his own life. In the aftermath of this murder-suicide, Amy's loved ones and an entire community were left in shock and grief. But what made this tragedy even more harrowing was the discovery of a website created by the killer. An online diary of obsession and violent intent that had spelled out Amy's fate in disturbing detail. Liam Ewens was a 21-year-old who had developed an unhealthy fixation on Amy Boyer, a girl he barely knew. In fact, the two had met only once as 8th graders, and Amy never kept contact with him or even realized anything was wrong. Nonetheless, years later, Ewens fell madly in love with her from afar, and this obsession turned into resentment and homicidal fantasy. With no friends or social outlet, Ewens turned to the internet to pour out his darkest thoughts. He built a personal webpage devoted entirely to Amy, where he chronicled his feelings, delusions, and eventually his plans to kill her. This website effectively became his online diary and manifesto. In rambling tirades, he fantasized about violence, not just against Amy, but others as well. He hatched plans for a shooting rampage at his former high school and even plotted to kill another classmate. These weren't abstract fantasies either. He laid out concrete plans and tracked Amy's movement day to day, even writing the exact date he planned to act on his fantasies. Unfortunately, the website had almost no visitors besides Ewens himself, so no one was able to intervene. One of the most controversial details surrounding this case is the ease with which Ewens was able to dig up personal details about Amy. In July of 1999, Ewens was able to purchase her social security number from a data broker called DocuSearch. and for an additional fee, obtain her work address through a deceptive pretext call in which an investigator tricked Amy into revealing her employer. This information directly enabled him to find and ambush her. In an almost unprecedented move after the murder, Amy's mother, Helen Remsburg, filed a wrongful death and invasion of privacy lawsuit against DocuSearch, arguing that the company's reckless sale of personal data had led to Amy's death. In 2003, the New Hampshire Supreme Court issued a ruling in Remsburg v. DocuSearch, declaring that investigators and data brokers have a responsibility of care to the people whose personal information they sell. The court also held that obtaining a social security number without consent could be an invasion of privacy, and that pretext calling violated state consumer protection law. These findings set a precedent for internet privacy going forward, and many data brokers tightened their practices or shut down entirely. Amy's story is one of the saddest to ever come out of the early internet, and her parents have even posted Ewan's full archived website online as a public warning about the dangers of unchecked cyberstalking. Her story is a tragic example of the fact that gaps in online privacy can have devastating real-world consequences, and that behind every statistic and legal precedent is a real person whose life was stolen. Fidonet murder plot. Daniel Thomas Depew and Dean Ashley Lambie were two men from Virginia who used online bulletins to advertise their intent to commit a serious and disturbing crime involving a child, which they planned to record and distribute. Dean conspired with Daniel Thomas Depew Jr. to carry out acts of extreme abuse with further plans to market and sell the recorded material. Undercover agents were able to intervene through a sting operation, posing as individuals who appeared to share the same criminal interests. Agents communicated with Daniel and Dean online and over the phone, with the recorded conversations becoming some of the most critical evidence used in court. In these exchanges, Daniel openly stated that he had no issue with ending the child's life and even suggested ways they could hide the body. The transcripts of the conversations are absolutely repulsive to read through and made me feel genuinely sick, so I won't be going over any of them in this video, but they are well documented online. This case is notable as one of the first investigations to feature online undercover operations, and the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force was founded to protect children online in the wake of this case and others like it. Carole's GeoCities. This entry is referring to a collection of web pages created by a woman named Carole, who wrote blogs about how she wanted to become a double below elbow amputee. The blogs were written in an incredibly obsessive, fixated fashion and are pretty disturbing to read. Through her blogs, we learn that Carole met a young boy that was missing 4 of his fingers on his right hand when she was 3 years old, sparking her fixation with amputees and her fantasies to become one. She also says that in August of 2000, her fiancé Rob introduced her to his former girlfriend Debbie, who had both of her arms amputated when she was 10 years old as the result of an accident involving fireworks. People have speculated online that Rob may have additionally had some kind of fixation with amputation, perpetuating Carole's growing obsession and possibly being the one to initially introduce her to the idea in the first place. Carole wrote that she was planning to stage an accident to completely sever both of her hands 8 inches below her elbows and then start wearing, quote, twin body-powered prostheses with stainless steel hooks on both of her arms. On Carole's web pages, she also posted photos and blogs about other women amputees and Paralympic athletes, stating that she wanted to be just like them. When Carole began receiving some backlash online for the absurdity of her blogs and obsessions, she made a statement where she explained that she and her fiancé Rob created the websites to gather feedback from real amputees, not to seek help or persuade others to do the same as Carole. She went on to say that her desire to become an amputee is entirely personal, and she believed that it would make her a better and happier person by enhancing what she called her feminine strength. She's been for the most part entirely quiet online since the creation of her websites, but internet sleuths have narrowed her down through her family's social media posts that mentioned her by name. At risk of possibly doxing her, I won't go too deep into the details of her personal life, as it seems she's obviously no longer interested in amputation and doesn't want to be bothered about that time in her life. She thankfully still has both of her arms and spends her time these days writing poetry and gardening. Alt 2600. Alt 2600 was an unmoderated Usenet newsgroup established in the late 1980s as a discussion forum for readers of 2600, the Hacker Quarterly magazine. The group was created on the recommendation of one of the newspaper's editors to provide an online gathering place for hackers. Its name, 2600, refers to the 2600 Hz tone used by early phone phreaks to manipulate telephone networks. As an open, unmoderated forum, Alt 2600 developed a strong and at times abrasive community culture. The Alt 2600 survival guide, posted by a user nicknamed Voyager, is still available to read today and shows that the community was often very combative but also incredibly dedicated to knowledge sharing. As the first major gathering place for internet hackers, Alt 2600 became the birthplace for several terms and techniques still used today. For instance, the term phishing was coined on the forum, where stolen AOL accounts were called phish and traded as a form of currency. As a sort of Wild West for hacking, scamming, and early cybercrime, Alt 2600 attracted the attention of the authorities, who lurked in its thread, gathering intel on the latest exploits. Despite this, the decentralized nature of the forum made it nearly impossible to track users down, and the illegal activity that happened in Alt 2600 went largely unpunished. However, this safe haven for hackers could not go on forever. Alt 2600 was one of many tight-knit communities that was fractured and eliminated by the Eternal September. Let me explain. In the 80s and early 90s, Usenet was mostly a place for computer hobbyists and tech professionals. Joining the conversation usually meant you'd been around technology long enough to know how to fit in, so forum etiquette stayed pretty consistent. But once a year, the tone of Usenet shifted dramatically. As the new school year began, universities granted incoming students their first access to the network, bringing in a sudden wave of fresh faces. Most arrived unfamiliar with the unspoken etiquette and flooded forums with naive questions and off-topic posts. Longtime internet users knew to brace themselves for September, where newsboards would become chaotic for a while before returning to normal. Unfortunately for Alt 2600 and other insulated groups, that yearly cycle ended in 1993 when AOL opened Usenet access to its millions of subscribers. The steady trickle of newcomers became a permanent flood, overwhelming veterans and erasing much of the community culture that had held for over a decade. The endless stream of users never subsided, and this new era of the internet became known as the Eternal September. This event fractured Alt 2600 into dozens of groups with varying levels of moderation, most of which eventually fizzled out or vanished into obscurity. While there are still spaces for hackers online, the golden age of Alt 2600 is long gone, living on only in archived forum posts and in the language that it helped to popularize. The USENET Big Mac Poll. The USENET Big Mac Poll is possibly the most obscure entry on this list, and may have given rise to the very first internet controversy in recorded history. On January 11th, 1982, when fewer than 50 posts were made online each day, a user named Avadis Tavanian Jr. posted a poll in NetGeneral asking whether people preferred the Whopper or the Big Mac. Responses exploded, reportedly slowing down the entire early internet and irritating users. This culminated in a long post by an administrator explaining that NetGeneral was for announcements and important queries, not burger debates. The original poster, better known by his nickname Avi, would go on to become Apple's vice president of software engineering, but his first brush with internet fame was starting a burger war. In the end, what began as a harmless poll became one of the earliest lessons in online etiquette, and proof that even in 1982, the internet could find a way to argue about anything. Kaycee Nicole. Kaycee Nicole was an online personality portraying a 19-year-old with cancer circulating on forums and news sites in the late 1990s. The hoax began in 1998 when Kelly Burke, a middle schooler in Gracemont, Oklahoma, created Kaycee using photos of a local basketball player on a GeoCities page. The site went unnoticed until Kelly's mother, Debbie Swenson, took an interest. Debbie wanted notoriety and soon began running the persona herself. In 1999, Kaycee appeared on collegeclub.com as a sunny blonde basketball player from Kansas, making friends and sending gifts to users. She gained enough attention to be interviewed by the New York Times in 2000 under the name Kaycee Swenson, Debbie's real last name, while Debbie also posed as Kaycee's mother. Later that year, Kaycee told her online friend Randall von der Woning that she had leukemia. Randall offered to host a blog, Living Colors, where Kaycee chronicled her illness in vivid, near-daily posts. Debbie also wrote entries as Kaycee's mother. Fans sent cards, gifts, and Amazon gift cards. In April 2001, Debbie told Randall that Kaycee's liver was failing. She then claimed Kaycee died of an aneurysm on May 14, 2001. Randall posted the news the next day. Many mourned, but others quickly grew suspicious. 3 days after Kaycee's death was announced on her website, a blogger named Sandra Mitchell would post on her own blog discussing the morals of people who faked being sick on the internet. Only a day after posting this blog, she came back with a new blog post directly calling out Kaycee Nicole, claiming that a memorial service and a cremation were logistically impossible. She also used Kaycee's IP address to track her to Peabody, Kansas. She called as many people in the town as she could find in a phone book, and to her surprise, not a single person had heard of Kaycee or a 19-year-old that had recently passed away. A Metafilter thread soon uncovered more. No one had met Kaycee in person. Her mother's writing style matched her own, and her photos were traced to Julie Fulbright, a former neighbor and friend of Debbie's daughter. Debbie initially told Randall that Kaycee was a foster daughter, but as the evidence mounted, she confessed in one final post to Living Colors that Kaycee never existed. Debbie later apologized to the Fulbright family, revealing she had borrowed Julie's photos from a collage project she'd once made for her. While the original archive of the confession post is lost to time, parts of it have been reconstructed using quoted sections from comments. In a partial quote, Debbie wrote, "I alone bear the shame for what I have done. I know I helped a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I am a moral person. It's been a nightmare for the past week." The Kaycee Nicole hoax remains one of the first major internet deception cases, influencing later online scams and even inspiring a Law & Order episode. And here we are. We've covered everything on the 90s internet mystery Iceberg. This video was so much fun to make, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. These weird internet mysteries and anomalies are always super interesting to research and talk about, so let me know in the comments if you guys want to see more content like this in the future. The next part of this series is going to be covering internet mysteries that took place in the 2000s, and after that, we'll keep covering the successive decades. If you have any suggestions or weird memories you have from the internet, let us know down in the comments, and we'll try our best to include it in the coming episodes. And like I mentioned in the start of the video, if you haven't already, make sure to join our Discord server so that you can chat with us and other viewers. It's been really cool to see the server grow as much as it has since we started the channel, and I've had a lot of fun talking to you guys. But that's all from me. Have a great rest of your night, or day, whatever time it is for you. Once again, thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode, where we explore more internet mysteries. See ya!